Before we get started, I just want to start off by having a word of prayer. So let us bow our heads. Father, we thank you once again for such an awesome day just by being a part of your Sabbath, Father. We thank you, Lord, for just blessings of just pulling ourselves away from such a busy world and allowing our minds to rest on you. So we pray that you would continue to be with us as we go into this afternoon service. May you just bless us, Lord. Bless the speakers and teachers. And we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. What we're going to do is sing a couple of songs before we get started. Does anyone have a favorite? We're going to sing a cappella today. All right. 183. Let's turn to page 183. And let's see what that is. I will sing of Jesus' love. Good selection. Page 183. Okay, so somebody's going to have to help me pitch that. Yep. Jesus love him, for he left above and died on Calvary. I will sing of Jesus' love. Endless praise, heart shall give. He has died, I might live, sing his love to me. And as love divine, earth for heaven, how they sin, mine can be made as white as snow. I will sing, Jesus, endless praise, heart shall give. He has died, I might live, King his love to me. Lord, I own is one. Help me now, my love to show. I will sing, Jesus' love, endless praise, heart shall. He has died, I might live. I will sing his love to me. Wow, you guys sounded wonderful. Wonderful. One more song. 460. 460. As water to the thirsty. You guys know that one? All right. Let's pitch it. What's the tune? As beauty to the eye, as strength follows weakness, as truth instead of lie. Sometimes springtime, sometime to be. So is my Lord, my living Lord, so Lord to me. place of calm, peace, pain, like meetings at the parting, like sunshine, rain, like moonlight and sunlight and sunlight on the sea. So is my Lord, my living Lord. So is my Lord to me. As sheep, as gold in steady gray, as freedom after bondage, as sun rising of day, as home to the traveler and all he longs to see. So is my Lord, my living Lord. So is my Lord to me. That's a nice song. Very nice. I like that. Very nice. Okay, so thank everyone for being here this afternoon. And what we're going to do first is have Sister Marsha. Where is she? Yeah, she was just here. Sister Marsha come up, and she's going to have a short health talk for us, and then we'll move right into the other part of the seminar. So here she is, Sister Marsha.
Good afternoon, everyone. So nice to see everyone here. The title of this health topic has to do with brain waves. Most of us have known or will know someone that has issues with the brain. The brain is the control center for the whole body. It's wired on 24/7. God has made us so wonderfully that He saw fit before we were conceived to set neurons firing in place to keep us alive, regulates heartbeat, regulates your breath, regulates your emotion. The brain is the control center. Many of us, we really think that our education began when we started school. Actually, it started from birth. The brain is sensing, evaluating, and it, just to guide you through where you're at to where you should be. It's picking up all these impulses that later on transfer into learning. But you've been learning from the day you were born. One of the greatest master, tool that has come into our century is online databases. They're full of information. Just about any question you have, you can enter it into Google or whatever you want to call it, and you'll find information that you can dig into, and references to books, magazine, periodical articles, publishings, just a few of the way for you to get the information. My students often say, how do you know so much of what you know? I'm like, remember that little jingle, take a look, it's in a book? Well, they're still in books. One of the sources that I contacted has to do with harvard.edu. So you can www.health.harvard.edu. It's in regards, the article is on nutritional psychiatry. And it's entitled Your Brain on Food, posted November 16, 2015. This article was written by Dr. Eva Selhub. SELHUB. And she wrote some very interesting thing when she talks about the brain is that since it's the most essential of all the organs in the body, we have a right to put the best fuel in it. And this is a growing field that's going on, how the brain relates, how nutrition impacts our brain health. And they're finding out that since it's such a high quality regulating organ of the body, we should give it the best nutrition. For example, eating high quality foods, the fresh, the best, the organic, instead of the refined and the denatured food. You know, they say what you eat you are. Still goes a long way. We find out that our God gave us the book called Counsels on Diets and Food for a reason. You read in there, she said, grain, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitutes the diet chosen for us by our Creator. That is still the way it should be. And nowadays, it's the outside, individuals on the outside are finding this to be so. When the body gets rid of free radicals, that's what happens when it uses oxygen. And in order to get rid of this, we need proper nutrition. Foods affects us, what we eat affects how we feel, it affects how we behave, it also the kind of bacteria that's in the gut. And these bacteria actually affect how the serotonin level, they said, I'll read it verbatim, how the foods you eat affect how you feel. Serotonin is in neutrons. Within that helps regulate sleep and appetite, meditate, moods, and inhibits pain. Wow, that's interesting. Serotonin is produced in our gastrointestinal tract. It's lined with 100 million nerve cells, or neurons. It makes sense that the inner workings of our digestive system don't just help us digest our foods, but also guide our emotions. No wonder our parents tell us, sit quietly and chew your food. No heated argument at the dinner table. This is very essential. So, they play an essential part in digestion, absorbing of nutrients. They activate the neutral pathway that travels directly from the gut to the brain. So scientists are seeing what God knew all along. The merry heart does good like medicine. And so we have to maintain harmony and peace when it's mealtime. If where you're sitting is upsetting, distracting, controversial, find another place to sit where you can be as quiet as ever. The body works best in digesting food at that. Probiotics. You know, a lot of you have heard about probiotics and the benefits they have. There are different brands on the market. One is Acidophilus, find in a cooler, but those strains of bacteria are also very important. They're finding it. More and more studies are being done on it. These supplements, of course, you can get it from the health food store. They provide a coating. They actually encourages the good bacteria inside your gut, and their anxiety level, perception of stress, and mental outlook improved compared to those who did not have any probiotics in their diet. So, a lot of times, I think you heard of the quote by Thoreau, let your food be your medicine, or in the future, your food will be your medicine. We have arrived at that future. More and more, the call is for something that's in my food. More and more people are less in the run-of-the-mill mood and answers to something natural. Dr. Neil Nedley, MD, from Weimar, actually wrote a book called Depression, The Way Out. I recommend that book highly. Read it from cover to cover. If you've ever gone through loss of a loved one, or a divorce or separation or moving, you might experience depression. It's just like that. Depression can be aggravated by how you treat your gut. If you don't feel like eating, I'm right here to tell you it's okay to have a smoothie, balanced smoothie for a meal, but not eating anything and say you're fasting, you have to be very wise. And so I have bleached white hair in the front. I suffered pernicious anemia from prolonged fasting without proper supplementing. So that's an indicator for your body saying, danger. So if your hair is jet black and it's suddenly start turning bleach white, I recommend see your doctor. Make sure everything else is all right. And anemia, it could be iron or folic acid. And if those two are low, your B12 will likely be low. But by taking care of those two, making sure those nutrients are up, and they're generally found in dried fruits, beans, whole grain, but if you're sad and going through that loss of a loved one, you might not feel like eating. And I encourage those sisters and brothers, family members, draw close to individuals that are going through loss and take them out to dinner or fix a meal or invite them over just so they keep their nutrients up at this time. Some people react differently. Some want to overdo eating and some just won't eat at all. And I was on that extreme. So those are some things about how your nutrients can impact not just your mental, but your physical as well, as you all know. Okay. Try eating they recommend, at the Harvard study, they recommend going on a clean diet. And what they recommend is for 2 to 3 weeks. It includes cutting out all processed foods and sugars and dairy-free, and I'll add meat-free, just 2 to 3 weeks. And they noticed there was a marked improvement of the patient actually having better clarity mentally, physically, emotionally, all improved their ratings. I think, and the counsels to us is that if someone is a brain worker, maybe just having a fruit meal for 2 or 3 days a week would drastically improve how they feel. And I also checked out WebMD, What's for Dinner. Eating affects your mental health. Traditionally, we have been trained to ask about food. We have not been trained to ask about food. And according to Dr. Drew Ramsey, the diet is potentially the most powerful intervention we have by helping people shaping their diets. We can improve their mental health and decrease the risk of psychiatric disorders. Isn't that amazing? And that is on a www.webmd.com article, entitled "A Guide to the New Nutrition." When did this nutrition begin? Anybody know? Then, exactly. So God knew that we would need this diet, but the world is discovering, wow. But I often refer a lot to Dr. Neil Nedley. If you've never checked him out, do so. He has lots of videos on the YouTube channel, lots of good articles written. You can check it out and see how well that affects your mental health. I have a sister that was, she is type 2 diabetes, at least that was diagnosed. And she was going through a crisis in her life, and she refused to eat hardly anything. And she definitely refused to drink water. And I think she drank juices or drinks, but no water. And I came across this recipe. You can write it down if you wish, or you can see me after on it. It has to do with 1/4 cup of ground walnuts, 1/4 cup of flaxseed, ground flaxseed. And I recommend the golden flaxseed. 1 tablespoon of date sugar, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Recommended hydrated sea salt. Anyway, I mixed that mixture up, and I think I did a cup, just remember the ratio. And I gave it to her. She went back to her home in Connecticut after visiting with me in Maine. And I had heard from her, so I called her in about second week. She told me that she had just, had just gone to see her doctor, and she had early stage of cervical cancer. They were able to catch it in time and alter the course of that disease, but her emotions had gotten better to where she thought about going to the doctor, whereas before she didn't care if she died or lived. And I could say that recipe, the walnuts with the flaxseed, which has the highest natural source of omega-3, and that did good for her brain, start processing it better, her heart felt better, and she was able to do that. You can sprinkle it over your cereal, between sandwiches, on top of your grains, just anywhere you'd like to eat it. And it's amazing what it does. It did work miracle for her. Praise the Lord. So our diet does play a role. This is just the N in nutrition on the brain. We're going to go through the new start, but we'll do that some more later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Marcia. I mean, it's just so much that we can learn. Growing up, my parents, they wasn't into health, and so they didn't teach health, and so you ate what you seen on TV, like Captain Crunch, remember that? Growing up, and hamburgers, and just different things that just wasn't really the best for you. So thank you, Sister Marcia, and now you see how food helps in our thinking and just different things. I mean, it's just so much. So, and actually, God holds us accountable for knowing all this. So really, we all should know about this stuff. Okay, so now we're going to go into the financial side of the seminar here, and we're going to ask Brother Isaac. I'll allow him to introduce himself and tell a little bit about himself, and just segue right into his presentation.
Thank you, Munjin, for allowing me to come and speak to the members. But before I get started, definitely want to open up with prayer. So if you could bow your heads with me. To guide my turn this one off.
Check one. I'll work it then. So.
Okay. I have this one, Brother Robinson. Okay, then. So you see on the screen it says financial peace. How many of you in this room feel you have financial peace? No hands up? Not yet, it's low? Okay, then. So you're probably saying, Brother Green, where are we going with this? So as I open up, I think it's very important to understand that Satan does not want you to have financial peace. Because when you don't have financial peace, Satan has the ability to distract you, to have you do things that you don't believe you would ever do. Okay? So I want to open up something from Counsels of Stewardship, And it's just a small quote. It says, while the principles of stewardship concern material things, they are, above all, of spiritual character. So character is what I want to have us begin to focus in on. What do you do from a financial standpoint? So you may have some questions, right? Such as, when should I start to get this financial peace? And I'm going to share that with you. How should I start? Now that's very, very important. How should you start? And then the third is, what should I attack first? As we move to the next slide, so let's start with some bad habits, which many of us may have from a financial standpoint. But you may say, Brother Green, I don't have bad habits. I make my money, I do what I'm supposed to do, and I'm good. However, let's talk about what some of those bad habits look like. So let's talk about the first one up top there, putting everything on a credit card. How many of us in this room have credit cards? All of us do. Now, in this society, to do some of the things we need to do, we do need a credit card. But some credit cards we don't need. And two is, some things we should not be charging on credit cards. So let's talk about the credit cards. So if I come to you, Brother David, and I give you a $100 bill, and you take that $100 bill, and I say, Brother David, you must pay me back in 21 to 27 days. And you say, okay, I'll take that deal, and you do. But Brother David decides that he's not going to pay me back in the 21st or 27th day. He waits to the 28th day to pay me back. But I did not tell him that on the 28th day, you owe me $19 for the $100 that I lent you. That's what credit cards are doing to us. It may be 15%, it may be 19%, and some of you say, but I have zero interest. You do. For how long? They usually say a year to 18 months. They have you transfer your balances over, and you say, I'm going to pay it off before I get to the 18 months. But guess what you do? You go out and you charge more on a zero interest credit card, and then now you have a higher balance with now a new interest rate. That's bad habits with our credit cards. I'm telling you, you should always have a zero balance on your credit card. 100% of the time. When you are carrying a balance, and some of you may say, but Brother Green, that's hard to do. I'm telling you, Satan is going to mess with your mind. Okay? We move to the second thing. Pay bills late. Now, clearly, nobody in this room pays their bills late. We would hope not. But if you don't have financial stability, sometimes you say, but I'm only 1 day late. Late is late. We should all, in God's eyes, be paying our bills on time. You loan money to people who will never pay you back. Have we all done that one time? Too many times, right, brother? Too many times. So then, if we are saying we are going to be great stewards of the money that God has given us, why are we lending money to people who will never pay you back? And then when they don't pay you back, what happens? We get upset, we get an attitude, and then they get upset with you because you upset with them. So the way we can prevent that from happening is, don't lend money to people who you know are never going to pay you back. As I move on, purchasing things that you cannot afford. Uh-oh. Go back to the credit card, right? We need furniture for the house. We take the credit card to buy the furniture. But really, we didn't need the furniture. But some people say, but I got a new house. I'm not going to put old furniture in a brand new house. But you're going to go out and buy new furniture on a credit card and not pay it off. And then now you have a brand new mortgage. Now you have something that you don't want to deal with. As we move to the next, Do we have a savings account? Do we have an emergency fund? Bad habits are people do not have those things. And most of all, how many of you pay yourself? When you get paid, do you pay yourself? Didn't see many hands go up. But think about it. You should pay yourself. All right? Now, I'm going to lead into another few more slides. Should you pay yourself before God? Okay then. All right? And the biggest, worst habit that some of us have, we do not give God our first fruits. I'm going to stop there and go into the next slide because you're going to see what I'm talking about here. So let's talk about from a spiritual aspect of money. And I have up there, what we do is who we are. As we say, what you say is who you are also, right? So let's talk about, up here I have many scriptures. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to go to Malachi 3 and 8, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. But it talks about, would a man rob God, yet have robbed me? But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee in tithes and offering? You say, Brother Green, I paid my tithes. Do you pay it on the gross or the net? Okay, young people, same way, you guys get an allowance. You should be paying your tithes. Okay? On the gross or the net? In your guys' case, it's all gross. Okay? But you were saying, no, but I want to give you an example because we should be paying tithes off our first fruit. So some of you would say, but this is what I get. Okay, well, Uncle Sam takes his where? Off the top. But if we say that we are true believers in God and we know that we want to have the opportunity to be prepared for the second coming, wouldn't we want God to get his first and Uncle Sam a second? But we allow Uncle Sam to take his first and we put God second. And sometimes we put God third. Okay? So we must focus on how do we make sure that we give God our first fruits. So I said, let's get focused. How many of you in this room have a financial plan? I see a few hands. Is it written down? It should be. You must write your plan down. If you don't have your plan written down, then guess what? It's not a plan. How many of us would get in our cars who don't have a cell phone and go from here to California and don't pull out a map? Wouldn't you pull out a map? Wouldn't you map out how you could get from here to California? Now we are so sophisticated, we have navigation on our phones, right? That we just speak it into the phone and it can tell us how long it takes us to get there and the fastest way to get there, okay? But we need to have a financial plan written down. We do. So let's move to the next slide. So we do have a plan for the second coming of Christ, don't we? That's why we're here today, right? This is our Sabbath. We are preparing every day to get prepared for that second coming of Christ. We go through and we read documentation. We read the Bible, Spirit of Prophecy, Desire of Ages, all the books that are out there that prepare us for that glorious day where we want to meet our Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ. And all of us are going to have a glorious time when we come together. But we have a plan because the Bible is the roadmap that prepares us for that glorious day. So why would you not have your roadmap to prepare you for financial peace? Do we really recognize that God does not need our offering? Do you know that? Now we say, but Lord, I'm giving you my tithes, I'm doing the right thing. But he's very clear that it's his anyway. Everything that we have on, everything that we are setting on, everything we have in this world belongs to God. Everything. You say, but I get up every morning and I work hard for it. Yes, you do. But God allows you to get up every morning. God gives you the guidance to go out and bring in those fruits to be able to take care of your family. Now let's focus on offering. People say, I pay my tithes, but we forget offering, don't we? So if we go back to Malachi, it said we should pay our tithes, right? And then 2 words or 3 words to the right, what did it say? We should pay our offering. So I know, I hear that Light Bearers does an awesome job of paying their tithes. Awesome job. But we have to remember, we must continue to pay our offering. As we look at this church moving to a new building, the tithes do not stay here. They go to the conference. So how are we going to be able to afford this new building moving forward? It's going to be through our offerings. So I say to you, saints, don't forget that we must pay our offerings. We must also remember that God has shared all of these blessings with us. And he's given it to us because he loves us. But then we should give back to him because we love him. So, I've said some things. The Bible's very clear. You reap what you sow. You don't sow no good seed, you reap bad seed. You sow good seed, you reap good seed. As farmers, I don't know if there's any farmers in here, a farmer must plant a seed to reap a harvest. And a quote, there's no divine intervention unless there is what? Human interaction. So I want to give you an example. The lady who had the issue of blood, had the doctors work on her for how many years? 12? 12 years, right? Could not get rid of the issue of blood. But she took action. She fought her way through many people just to touch the hem of his garment, right? And she was healed because she believed as long as I'm taking this action to touch the hem of his garment, I would be healed. So why don't we trust God in our finances? Some people say, I do. So let's say in order to have financial peace, let's start with the basics. One is, let's set up a budget. That budget should be written down. You should go back and you should evaluate all of your spending, put it down on paper, you, your spouse, your significant other, and begin to build that budget. And that's also for kids in the house too that may have side jobs, you know, cutting grass, pushing snow, and they should be actually paying into the house budget also. Now, I know you young kids, you don't like that, but when I was young, my grandmother made me pay, okay? You want to eat, you got to pay, all right? Let's not overspend. Do we overspend, saints? Because sometimes we do, because sometimes we're feeling down. And I like the message of health. Where your mind is where your heart's going to be, right? So when you're feeling depressed, what do? You go out and you buy stuff that we shouldn't buy. And before you know it, what happens is that you find yourself in a very, very bad situation by overspending. You need to stick with your budget. Purchase the basics, you'll be able to afford the best later. Because as you get older, you should be setting money aside to when it comes time to retire, then you should be in good shape. Some of you may say, but the Lord's coming. He's coming soon. You are absolutely right. But you still must be prepared financially. So the Bible is very clear. We should do what? Tarry until he comes, right? All right? I don't know if Jesus is coming tomorrow. I don't know if he's coming next year. None of us know that sitting in this room. But you still want to be able to financially take care of yourself. We talk about save, and I'll get more into that. And then understand your credit report. And you say to me, I don't need a credit report. How you going to buy a house? How you going to buy a car? Unless you pay cash. Okay? But your credit report to me is also your report card to God of how you manage the money that he's given you. So you never looked at it that way, right? But I do. Is that if my credit score is 500 because I don't pay my bills on time, then I'm mismanaging the money that God has gave me. Versus, if God says, if I give you this money, pay me on time in tithes and offering, because Uncle Sam's going to take his, but you need to pay your creditors on time. Because you represent who? We represent God. If we stand here and we say we are children of God, then how can you have a bad credit report? Now, all of us go through tough times. There's folks that, we made stupid decisions when we were young, okay? But we have to learn from those mistakes we do. We have to say, Lord, teach me, guide me to be a better steward of the funds that you give me. So now, men, don't take this the wrong way. There is a difference in how we manage our finances. Men, we take risk. It's just our nature. It's just who we are. However, women focus more on security. So we may get that impulse to buy a brand new car, and your wife says to you, not so. Not so. We need stuff in the house. We need to have a savings. Men are very impulsive in the sense of big ticket items versus women are going to look at security. Now, when it comes to clothing, women, you the opposite direction. Now you're risk takers, and then we find ourselves falling into different fads we do. So understanding that system is designed to take your money. Be willing to listen, take input, and give input, and be realistic. You say, what do you mean by that, Brother Green? Listen to someone who's more knowledgeable about finances. Do you need a financial advisor? It depends what your goals are. But talk to someone, if you choose to, that you trust, that would be confident, that would give you good financial advice. And that may not be someone in your family. Clearly, you don't want to talk to the person who's borrowing money from you. So you want to talk to someone and say, you know what, Sister Munjin, I noticed that you're very frugal. Can you help me maybe from the financial state? Sister Munjin says, yeah, you know what, I can. But I know another brother that's a little bit more savvier than me that can help you understand your finances better. And that brother keeps everything in confidence. And then that's how this thing gets moving, the way you can help someone financially. So how do you start a budget? You can set up a budget form. You need to commit to your plan for 90 days. And then understand your monthly income. We should all know what our monthly income is. I hear people say to me, I think I make. You think you make? You should know right down to the penny. So if I was going to cheat you, you would never even know. You just would not know. So you should know exactly how much you make. And then break the allocations of your income down. You should. So here are some recommendations. And I have used this probably for the past 20 years. And this is 10, 10, 10, 30, 30 rules. And you ask me, what does this mean, Brother Green? You guys can ask me. What does it mean? Okay, then. Let's talk about the 10. So 10% should go to charitable and church donations and tithing. 10% you should pay yourself. Also, emergency fund and savings. And that's how you should allocate your funds when you get paid. Pay God is 10% first. Pay yourself. Also, have a savings of 10%. And then you need to have an emergency fund. Why do you need an emergency fund? Stuff happens, right, Max? All of a sudden, you're driving down the road, you blow out a tire. And guess what? You have no savings. But that emergency fund will be able to take care of that. How many of us own houses? Okay? House, furnace goes up. I know, $4,500, right? For a new furnace. And that's a good price, because typically it can be $15,000 to $20,000. But you don't have that emergency fund set aside, because you're going out and you're buying all that nice looking stuff. Versus let's buy the basics and the necessities, and all that stuff will take care of stuff later on. Now let's get into the 30-30. So 30% of your income should go towards your housing expenses. That's your mortgage, that's your insurance, that's anything that deals with housing, even your food. 30% of your income. Then 30% should go towards your transportation. That's your car insurance, that's your car, that's your gas, that's maintenance and repair. Only 30%. You look at me and say, Brother Green, wait a minute. I can't survive. Well, when you break down your budget, you're going to find out that you can survive. You really can. So you should commit to your plan. You may say, so why should I do it? Because financially, if you don't have financial peace, then, I mean, what could go wrong, right? Okay? Be committed. You must write the plan down. I always say, just do it. This may be one of the hardest things you ever have to do in life. Do it daily. You must be conscientiously prioritize your life every day. And then I'll just talk about take the time to analyze your current conditions. And then once you get your plan in place, celebrate small successes. Okay? As I move to the next slide, so let's take some baby steps. First thing you should do is that pay the minimum on everything you have until you get to $1,000 in savings. You should. That's your first step. So if you have all these credit cards, pay the minimum. And then after that, you need to implement what's called a debt snowball. Pay off all personal debt except your home. You say, how do I do that? Once you get the $1,000 in savings you do, now you have got yourself into the practice of saving. While you're paying the minimum on your credit cards, then you will have the opportunity to attack your credit cards. Now, you got to look and see which credit card you want to go after first. Most people would say highest interest rate or highest balance. You have to decide which way you want to go. I believe if you have high interest rate, high balance, go after that first. Some people would say go after the small credit card first and then pay off the big one. But while you're not paying off your big credit card with the high interest rate, you're giving more of your money to the man or to the system. It's faster for you to pay off the big one first, it would be. Okay? So we have an example here. Salary, $70,000, 10%. So we should be paying $7,000 to who? To God, right? And then you notice, you say, but wait a minute, Brother Green. That's 10%. That's only $5,600 of the 70. What happened? How much do we pay Uncle Sam? 20%. Some cases 25, 30%, depending on what percentage it is. So that's why you would only pay yourself, in this example, $5,600 you would. You should be saving $5,600 and then so on with your emergency fund. So now you say that, but I'm making $70,000. I can't spend no more than $16,800 in my mortgage total for the year. I can't live. But this example, only on $70,000 it is. So if there are two incomes, guess what? Then you can afford more of a house. But a lot of times we live above our means, all because of the choices that we make. The same way with transportation. I want to drive a very, very nice car. You know, there is a system that is used out there that the car you buy should be no more than 15% of your income. So think about that. So in this case, if you make $70,000 a year, what kind of car could you afford? You say, oh. Man, you must go way back there, okay? All right? Pinto was back in 1970s, okay? But think about it. So that means maybe you can't get a car payment right now. Maybe you need to pay for a car in cash. But the system is designed to keep us in debt. Ladies, how many times does Macy's send you an email saying, we got a sale? Men, Home Depot, BJ's, Costco. You know what they're doing? Rolling you in. And then you're like, man, I could not afford to buy that, but it does look good. It's because of the sale, right? Oh, I got it at a discount. Yeah, you got it at a discount at 19% interest. Okay? The worst credit cards to have is those store credit cards. They will kill you. Okay? You have a question, Sister Manju? No, say that once, so you pay all the minimums of all of your debt until you get to $1,000 in savings. Because now you got $1,000 in your savings account, and then now you can begin to see that, because what it does, it changes your habit of how you spend. It does, okay? Because there's many people who don't have any savings. Yes, sir. Nope, I'm not saying that. I'm saying as you start your plan, your budget, right? See, sometimes people say, I want to give more, right? That's great, but maybe you can't afford to give more yet. Because what I recognize, I can never be God-giving, okay? If you desire to give more, then you can, yes. Well, so as you say that, right? So offering, where should it come from? From your personal, okay? Now, most of us will say, my emergency fund. No, because God has requested us to give offering also, all right? Your personal. All right. Any other questions before I go on? Okay. Now, this was very interesting when I went to study this. So, are you aware that the government has information on how much the average Adventist makes? Did you know that? So, if you look at 61% of Adventists make $37,000 to $50,000 a year. Just that's all you got to do is Google it. Then 24% make over $100,000 and 15% make over $300,000. Now, when I saw this, I had to stop in my tracks. I said, where are they getting that information from? Brother Manju, are you telling them what we're getting? So someone has to be telling them what average incomes are. But they are tracking everything we do, even your tithes. Now, I can tell you where they got the number. Your tax return, right? So imagine they get the number off the tax return. Now, the tax return is public. You know that, right? So anyone can see that information if they choose to. So you say, but how do they know I am Seventh-day Adventist? Well, they know based upon your giving to a Seventh-day Adventist church. So when we get in a time of trouble, and some of us say, well, I'm not part of this faith, because some people not in this room, okay, are going to say, I ain't with those Seventh-day Adventist people. But they're going to know, why were you giving to the Seventh-day Adventist cause? Because you believe in, of course, it's the angel's message. That's why I'm saying it's very, very important to understand the information that's out there on you. They know stuff about us that we don't know about us. Okay? And as I move, and I think I have a few more slides left, the money is not ours. Houses and grounds, pictures and furniture, garments and luxuries do not belong to us. We are pilgrims, we are strangers. We have only a grant of those things that are necessary for health and life. Our temporal blessings are given us in trust to prove whether we can be entrusted with what? Eternal riches. If we endure the proving of God, then we shall receive the purchased possessions, which is to be our own glory, honor, and this beautiful world and beautiful word, which is immortality. If we don't believe in this, then why do we go to church? So what God is saying is we must continue to give accordingly to his cause, because that money that we are giving to the church in tithes and offering is opening the doors to bring others to Christ. That is our responsibility. Sometimes we stop because, Lord, I'm going to make it in. I can't worry about brother, but you need to be worried about brother David and sister so-and-so and brother so-and-so on the street. Because our responsibility is to bring more to what? To God. And you should sometimes stop yourself and say, hey, is there anyone asking me about my faith? At work, in the church, on the basketball court. Because people should see a difference in us. If we look like everybody else, then guess what? There's something wrong with that picture. At this time, I will open it up for any questions that you may have. Brother Munjin will keep me on time. So the floor is open for any questions. Hey, expert, but I do have the opportunity to manage several of God's funds. Yes, sir.
Blessing does not necessarily come from the tithe, because that's is. The blessing truly comes from the offering that you give. So if you're going to give 10-10, which a lot of people do, where do you take the it?
So if you're going to give 10-10, then you take the hit where transportation or in your home or yourself. But he's saying that he's taking the 10-10 from yourself. So he's saying he's going to take the 10% for tithes, take the 10% for self for offering. So where do you take the other from? You just have to change your style of living. But here's the one thing I want to say to you, right? We have to be very, very careful on what we are trying to do within our heart, okay? Because there are many folks who want to pay more, but the heart is not in the right place, okay? So we have to remember that. Yes, Brother Darnell.
Yeah, how do we come up with 10%? Is it 10%? Is it 3%? Is it 7%? How do we come up with that conclusion on the offering?
Well, I'm not saying that you do, you have to. The gentleman said, well, if he wants to do 10%, you can. That's your choice. What I'm saying is the tithe is very clear. The Bible is very clear. It's 10%. So, yes, sir.
If you go back to what they did, they gave as much as 25%, and the Lord blessed them. Everything grew.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, but my question was just that if you're allocating only 10% to tithe, and you want to, because it's not necessarily that you're doing it to get money back from the Lord. That's not the intention. But when you see the local church that you belong to, and you see the need for money, and you want to see ministries flourish, you make the effort to do something extra.
And brother, you're absolutely right. And here's what I would say to you. As this church is moving forward to go into a new building, we need folks like you, okay, who want to give more, because we're going to need more than just you paying a little bit of offering over here. Because for us to get this building that God has given us to where it needs to be, so we don't have to worry about not having any heat in the wintertime, right? Kitchen isn't where it's supposed to be. Bathrooms are backing up. Oh, by the way, we got a service coming up at 2 o'clock. You guys got to be out of here, right? That's the way we have to think. Your heart has to be in the right place. I'm right there with you, brother, because guess what? We can do anything through Christ. Anything. If God puts on your heart to give additional funds, then that's God speaking to you. Okay? But some people may be in a situation today that they don't have that to give right now. But there are many people who may be in that position that can give more than that 10 or 20 or 30% they can. Yes, Brother Darnell, and then I know I got 2 more people.
Yeah, too much is given, much is required respect. So if God gives you more, he expects for you to give more. You know, and I agree with the brother 100%. You know, if God blesses you or bless you, you have to give. You have to give. And I pass it.
Yes. I think we had Sister Bogas and then Sister Rodriguez in the back.
Brother Isaac, as a part of a couple, can you speak to approaches for married people who might have different approaches for budgeting or spending, more so, and how, I'm sure prayer is the answer, but some practical tips for how two can come together to be in agreement about how they're going to spend and how
finances?
they're going to budget. Yes.
I think you're trying to set me up, but anyway. No. So I only go based upon my personal experience with my relationship with my wife. Susan and I are going to be married over 20 years. And the one fight that we have never had, you know what that fight is? Over money. And it's because of we set the terms of how we're going to manage our finance up front. Okay? And sometimes I may not always agree with her, and sometimes she may not always agree with me. But at the end, we set those terms. And we have. See, I learned when I met Susan, even though I had a job that made more money than her, she had more money saved. Okay? And I'm like, what? How you have more money saved than I saved? It's because she had a different approach. So you have to be willing to set aside your pride and say, okay, what is the best for our family moving forward? Because when you don't have financial peace in your home, Satan is going to mess with you, your husband, your kids, and they're going to do some real crazy stuff. So I would strongly recommend that you guys come together and maybe, if you choose to, ask another couple that has been successful. Because they can maybe share some of the pitfalls that you could run into. My wife and I, we have some agreements we do. So we have an agreement who can beat each other saving money. Okay? And if she hits her number, I have to pay her extra money. Okay? And if I beat my number and she don't hit her number, she has to pay me. Now, you women are very, very competitive, right? You clearly don't want to pay your husband extra money. Okay? All right? So, I think Sister Rodriguez, you had a question? Okay. I got one more. We had Sister Rodriguez and then Sister Manja. That's the last one, okay.
Okay, so the question I have is, you say, okay, pay the minimum on your credit cards so that you can come with a savings of $1,000. Okay, now after you've done that, Now you're going to determine what is the first credit card that you are going to try to now, pay
Attack.
off.
Right, correct.
Now, my question is, you pick one credit card. Let's say you have 3. Okay? You pay the minimum. You've got your 1,000. You start with credit card number 1. You're still paying the minimum on the other 2 so that you can now increase that savings, or how are you working that?
So I would not increase my savings until I pay off all of my credit cards. So once you finish paying off the first credit card, that money that you would have spent on that first credit card should roll over into the other credit card so you can pay that one down faster. And then once you finish that, then you go to the third credit card. Okay.
So that's again, again, as I said, you have your 1,000. You've met your 1,000. Now you're going to start with your first credit card. So what I'm asking you now is, what percentage are you putting on that first one you're attacking and the other 2?
So it's not about a percent. It's about whatever the minimum was you were paying on the 3, right? So let's give a hypothetical situation. You have 3 credit cards. You have $20,000 in debt, right? Okay, your minimum payments are $100. That way we keep it simple, right? $100 for each one. Well, you end up paying off the one credit card, which was your highest interest rate, highest balance in under a year and a half, right? That same $100 that you had that you were paying on the highest interest rate credit card, now you take that 100 and now you pay it on the next highest interest rate credit card with the next highest balance. So now you're paying 200 on that card and you're still paying 100 on the other card. And then once you finish paying that $200 card off that you were paying minimum, now you take that $200 on top of the $100 and now you pay that $300. And what happens is you will notice that your habits change, because once you pay that credit card off, you are not going to want to charge in that card again.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I understand. You have your 1,000 in savings. You have your 3 credit cards. You're paying now the minimum on all 3?
Yes.
Okay, and then hopefully you have.
No, it's not hopefully.
Okay, well, okay. So you're paying the minimum on all 3.
That is correct.
But and then you're supposedly going to get rid of one.
And you will. And what will happen is you will keep saving just like you normally do, right? But the point would be is that you now are building a habit, because most people don't understand it takes 21 days to break a bad habit, right? Or to start one, right? So think about that. So by saving that money, because remember I said you want to celebrate the small successes, right? So if you had no money in your savings and now you have $1,000 in your savings, aren't you going to be pretty happy? Because you're like, oh, I can do this. And you will be able to do that. I think Sister Munjan, and then I know we got to cut it off.
I just have a comment to Sister Bogan's question. When we first got married, my husband and I, he wanted to do a budget, but I wasn't a budget person. I lived from check to check, and I had fun. So I said, honey, let's just take my money and put it in savings. We could go on trips if we need furniture or whatever. But I said, I don't want to help pay bills, because if I get sick, you can't handle this by yourself. So let's get what we can what you can handle, and let's save mine. But let's go on trips with it. Let's not save it. So he prayed, and God, it was like a light bulb that came on in my head. So I said, okay, honey, let's, do X, Y, and Z. We started saving, and I saw how nice it could be, and I said, oh, let's keep on doing this. So.
And it does make a difference, doesn't it?
It does. It really
makes
does.
you feel so much better to be in a situation where you have these savings. I have final things that we need to be focused on. And yes, Jesus is coming back, okay? I want us to know that, right? But we have a responsibility to set our next generation in a better situation than what we started. So we talk about inheritance, right? So if I leave this world today, I should be able to set my kids up to where their focus should not be going to the church or scrounging around to pay to bury me. If you are being a good steward of God's money, you need to make sure that you have your situation, your burial, your finances should be in order when something happens. I've seen it too many times in the business that I'm in to where my wife and I have paid for funerals because people did not have money, because the parents never thought about setting up a financial plan and having an inheritance set aside for their kids. And remember this, people of color, we are already at a disadvantage. There's a commercial out, and that commercial starts with everybody at a starting line. And the question says to everybody, if you have two parents in your household, take 10 steps forward. And people move forward. If you go to a private school, take 10 steps forward, people move forward. And then you look at the starting line, and guess who's standing there? People who look like us. And then they said, bam, shoot the gun, the race starts. We are already 20 steps behind before we even get started. We as Christian folks need to think about setting up our next generation. And yes, Jesus is coming. People say, I don't need to say because Jesus is coming. In my opinion, that is thinking very foolish. You are not setting your kids up to be successful. So at this time, I will shut up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the questions. And I'll turn this over to Elder.
Thank you, Brother Isaac. Wasn't that interesting? And honestly, God expects us to be good stewards of his money. He doesn't expect us to be in so much debt that we're drowning. He doesn't expect us to be cheating on our taxes. He doesn't expect us to, all these things that the world does, we should set the standard of a U.S. citizen or wherever you're from. Just a people, because we have God behind us. Okay, I'm going to ask everybody to stand and take a stretch while Brian gets set up here. And the thing is, Isaac brought us a finance from a more personal perspective. Brother Brian is going to bring us the finance more on a global perspective, what we should know too. Because I'm telling you, as people in this world, we need to know what's going on, what's happening, what are the pitfalls. And so that's what this whole financial seminar is all about. So I'm praying that you're enjoying it and you're learning something, all right? All right, so we're going to get started in about 2 minutes. And so please, if you leave, walk out that door, please come back. Don't stand out there and talk. I know how you guys can be. Come back inside, and we'll get started in about 2 minutes.